The story opens under the morning sun, that soft kind of light that makes privilege look poetic. Marble floors glisten. A row of Teslas hums quietly outside the gates. Students in crisp uniforms flood through the courtyard of St. Aldan Academy, a school where success isn't earned, it's inherited. The bell rings, polished shoes click across polished floors, teachers are greeted by their last name, not their first. And through the stream of confidence and noise walks Ava Kensington, 16, flawless, distracted. Her backpack is a designer one, her smile rehearsed. Her father owns half the software industry, but her eyes, they always look like they're searching for a lifeline. Because inside this school of champions there's one subject she can't conquer, the school quiz competitions. Every month, St. Aldan hosts an interclass quiz. And every month, Ava Kensington, the billionaire's daughter, loses. Not by much, but enough for the whispers to sting. Guess money doesn't buy everything, a boy snickers as she walks by. She hears it, pretends she doesn't. That's how the rich are taught to handle shame, quietly. But deep down, she feels it. The failure, the fear, the pressure of being his daughter. Because sometimes the hardest thing to carry is a name that everyone else worships. In the hallway, there's a glass case lined with golden trophies, each one etched with names, the best students, the brightest minds, the untouchable legacies. Ava stops there every day, staring at the empty spot where her name should be. Just a few feet away, Mr. Samuel Cole, the school's cleaner, wipes the same glass she's staring into. He's tall, mid-50s, with dark skin, shoulders slightly bent from years of work. His uniform is faded but clean. He's been here for 15 years. He's seen generations of students come and go, future doctors, CEOs, heirs. And through it all he's learned one quiet truth. Money makes noise, but character moves in silence. He watches Ava's reflection as she frowns at the empty spot. He doesn't say a word, just keeps cleaning, slow and careful. And inside the classroom, Ava sits at her desk as the teacher calls out Question 3, capital of Sri Lanka. Her mind goes blank. The answer is right there. She's read it 100 times. But the silence of the room becomes a roar. Her pen shakes. She blurts out, Bangkok. The class laughs. The teacher sighs, Colombo, Miss Kensington. She stares at her paper, cheeks burning. Even with every privilege, every private tutor and every advantage, she still can't seem to win when it counts. Because the world never tells you. Pressure doesn't care how rich your father is. And during the lunch break, the cafeteria buzzes with noise, laughter, gossip, ambition. Ava sits alone at a corner table, scrolling through her phone, ignoring the notifications. Her father's assistant has texted again. Your dad says to focus harder. Remember, the Kensingtons don't fail. She locks the screen, pushes her tray aside. Across the room, a janitor's cart squeaks. Mr. Cole replaces the trash liners, whistling softly. Nobody looks at him. Nobody ever does. But from where he stands, he sees something that everyone else misses. The loneliness wrapped in luxury. Later that day, the headmaster calls Ava into his office. She stands in front of his desk, eyes fixed on the floor. Your father called, he says gently. He's concerned about your quiz results. He suggested we assign a private coach. Ava nods. The shame sits heavy in her throat. When she leaves the office, she passes by Mr. Cole again in the hallway. He's polishing the school emblem, the same emblem she wears on her blazer. For a moment, their eyes meet. He nods respectfully. She gives a polite half-smile, the kind of smile rich people are taught to give those who serve them. Then she walks away. She didn't know it yet, but the man she just passed would soon change everything she believed about winning. Evening. The school is nearly empty. Ava sits alone in the library, surrounded by open books. Her notes are perfect, colour-coded, highlighted, neat. But her confidence? Scattered. She stares at the quiz questions from earlier, whispering the answers under her breath. Her hands tremble every time she reaches the third one. From the hallway, faint footsteps echo, a slow, steady rhythm. Mr. Cole pushes his cleaning cart past the door, humming softly to himself. He pauses when he sees her inside. This girl, usually untouchable, now looking fragile under the library lights. He doesn't interrupt, just watches for a second. Because he knows the look of someone who's fighting their own reflection. And outside, Ava's driver is waiting outside the gates, checking his watch. Inside, she's still frozen over the same question. Who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize? She knows it. She knows it. but her mind goes blank again. Marie Curie, she whispers, too late, as if the silence delayed her brain. She shuts her book, frustrated. In her world, mistakes aren't forgiven, they're magnified. The next morning, she walks through the courtyard again, the same trophy case, but this time she stops when she sees Mr. Cole standing there already. He's holding a spray bottlishing emblate. "Morning," he says quietly. She nods. "Morning." He gestures toward the trophies. "You aiming for one of these?" She blinks. "Trying, doesn't seem to like me back." He chuckles softly. "Maybe it's not about trying harder. Maybe it's about trusting longer." She doesn't know what to say. Just stares, confused. But something in his tone feels different. Not pity, not flattery, just truth, spoken softly, the way wisdom often is. Because sometimes the people cleaning your reflection are the ones meant to help you see it clearer. The bell rings. She leaves for class. He watches her go, shaking his head slightly, not in judgment, but understanding. For 15 years he's seen kids like her, rich, brilliant, terrified of failure. And every year he wonders, how can someone have everything and still be afraid of not being enough? As the camera pans out, the school looks perfect again, clean, symmetrical, untouched. But somewhere in that perfection, a small crack has appeared. Because for the first time, Ava Kensington has met someone who won't treat her like a Kensington, but like a human being. If you're still watching, make sure to subscribe. These are the stories they don't teach in classrooms, but they'll change how you see the world. She had money, tutors, and every advantage, but sometimes the lesson you need most doesn't come wrapped in wealth. It comes from the man holding the mop, the one the world stopped noticing a long time ago. And soon he'd teach her one secret that no textbook in the world could ever explain. The next day, Ava Kensington sat at the end of the corridor, still in her school uniform, her tie loosened, her blazer hanging over a chair. On the desk in front of her, another red-marked quiz sheet. Another failure. The day had been long, too long. Her private tutor had already packed up and left. The soft click of his shoes disappeared down the hall, replaced by the rhythmic swish of a broom. Mr. Samuel Cole was sweeping near the stairwell, careful, deliberate movements like someone who had learned patience the hard way. He'd seen this scene before. Same girl, same desk, same defeated look. Ava ran her hand through her hair, muttering to herself, "How can I keep missing the obvious?" The broom paused. Then his voice came, calm, low, almost hesitant. "You keep overthinking the answers you already know." Sometimes the right words don't come from a teacher. They come from the person no one listens to. Ava's head snapped up. "Excuse me?" Mr. Cole gave a polite half-smile, eyes still on his broom. "Didn't mean to interrupt, just noticed the pattern." She frowned, her pride already rising. "You noticed my... what, exactly?" He leaned the broom against the wall, stepping closer. "You don't lose because you don't know things. You lose because you don't trust that you do." She blinked. "You're a janitor?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Then what do you know about school quizzes?" she asked, half mocking. He didn't flinch. "Enough to know the smartest people I've met didn't always have the best degrees. They just believed their answers faster." Silence. The only sound was the faint buzz of the ceiling lights. Ava tried to laugh it off, but something about the way he said it felt like it wasn't meant to impress her. It was meant to reach her. When truth comes from someone you've been trained to overlook, it hits different. "Confidence beats knowledge," he said quietly, picking up his broom again, "especially when the clock starts ticking." She frowned, confused. "That's supposed to mean something?" He just smiled. "It will." And with that, he went back to sweeping. But Ava couldn't shake it. Those 4 words looped in her head like a song lyric she didn't understand yet. Confidence beats knowledge. Later that evening, the hall was empty now. The sun had dipped below the windows, leaving streaks of gold on the marble floor. Ava sat alone, still staring at the same paper. Every wrong answer suddenly looked less like a lack of skill and more like a hesitation. She whispered the phrase under her breath. Confidence beats knowledge. It didn't make sense, but it felt true, and she had a quick flashback to all the quizzes she had ever done. Her first quiz, she knew the answer but froze. Her second, she changed her answer last second. Third, she overthought every question until time ran out. Now it clicked. She wasn't failing for lack of knowing. She was failing because she didn't trust herself long enough to win. Maybe it wasn't the questions that defeated her. Maybe it was the silence between them. The next morning she noticed him again. Mr. Cole, walking slowly across the courtyard, pushing his cleaning cart. He wasn't like the others. Most people at that school moved fast. He moved with purpose. She watched him for a moment before walking up. "Hey," she called out. He turned, surprised. "Morning, Miss Kensington." Ava hesitated. "About what you said yesterday," he smiled. "Didn't think you'd remember." "I did," she said. "I just don't get it." He stopped his cart. "You ever play chess?" "Sometimes," she said. "Then you know, the best players don't move fast. They move sure." He looked at her quiz paper peeking from her folder. "You've got all the moves. You just panic before you play them." Ava crossed her arms. "So you think confidence is the cheat code?" He chuckled softly. "Confidence ain't a cheat code. It's the only code that works when everything else fails." Sometimes the world gives you the right teacher wearing the wrong uniform, and in the classroom, later that day, Ava sat at her desk during another quiz. This time she remembered his voice. She took one deep breath before answering the first question. The panic didn't vanish, but it didn't own her either. Her teacher, Miss Harland, glanced her way, surprised. The girl who usually froze now looked still, steady. When the bell rang, Ava looked down at her paper, fewer blanks than ever before. A flicker of pride crossed her face. Maybe he was right. That evening she stayed late again. The hallway was quiet except for the faint sound of a radio from the janitor's closet. Old jazz, Miles Davis. She walked in and found Mr. Cole cleaning brushes. He looked up, smiling. "Another rough day?" "Actually," she said, smiling back, "not as rough." He laughed. "Progress, then?" Ava hesitated, then said, "You said confidence beats knowledge. What made you so sure?" Mr. Cole's face softened. He sat on a stool. "Because I once watched a man with every degree lose his job to someone who believed he could do it better." She listened. "Knowledge is power," he said, "but belief is motion, and motion wins races." That was the first time she realized wisdom doesn't always wear a suit. Before leaving, she said quietly, "Thank you, Mr. Cole." He smiled. "Don't thank me yet. Wait till you win something first." As she walked away, her silhouette framed against the fading light through the window. Her world was still the same. Marble floors, privilege, expectations. But something inside her had shifted. She wasn't chasing answers anymore. She was chasing calm. If you're still watching this, hit that subscribe button, because some lessons don't come from books. They come from the quiet corners of power. And that's what we tell here. Stories that wake the world up. And later that night, Ava was in her bedroom. She was looking across trophies her father's name built, not hers. She stares at them, then writes something small in her notebook. "Confidence beats knowledge." She underlines it twice. Her father calls from the hallway, "Lights out, kiddo." She smiles faintly and whispers to herself, "Tomorrow I start believing." Because sometimes the person society calls a cleaner is the one sent to clear the fog from your mind. The next day, in the cafeteria, afternoon, the sound of clinking trays fades as students leave one by one. Sunlight streams in through the tall windows, cutting through the silence like soft blades of gold. Mr. Samuel Cole stood alone, polishing the last table. Same slow, circular motion, same quiet rhythm. 15 years in this school. 15 years of watching other people's names get engraved on trophies he cleaned. Then, the sound of heels on tile. Ava Kensington. Uniform, sharp, eyes thoughtful. But this time, she wasn't walking past him. She was walking to him. "Mr. Cole?" she said, hesitating slightly. He looked up, surprised but calm. "Miss Kensington, I've been thinking about what you said, about confidence." He smiled faintly. "And what conclusion did you come to?" "That I still don't get it," she admitted. "You said confidence beats knowledge, but how do you build that? You can't study confidence." He nodded slowly, setting his rag down. "You're right, you don't study it, you practice it. Some lessons don't come from books, they come from people who learned them by surviving life itself." He leaned against his mop handle. "I'll show you one secret," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "Every great mind I've met, scientists, soldiers, even my own mama, had one thing in common." Ava crossed her arms. "What?" He smiled. "Before they answer, they pause." She raised an eyebrow. "That's it," he nodded. "That pause is power. It tells your brain you belong here." She frowned, trying to process that. So, just stop and breathe. Exactly, he said. The pause keeps fear from answering before you do. Sometimes the smallest change, one breath, 1 second, can shift a whole life. He pulled a small, worn notebook from his back pocket. The cover was cracked as the pages yellowed. Here, he said, handing it to her. Ava hesitated before opening it. Inside, neat handwriting, careful letters pressed into the page like someone writing prayers instead of notes. At the top, one sentence read, "Don't rush truth. It's already yours." She looked up at him. "Did you write this?" He nodded. "My mama used to say it. She couldn't afford school, but she taught me that wisdom's not about how fast you learn. It's about how deep you listen." Just Ava traced her fingers over the words. Something in her chest softened. It wasn't just advice. It was a bridge. The most powerful lessons often sound too simple to be true until life proves them right. And that night, Ava was in her room. She sits with the notebook open beside her quiz papers. She breathes in, pauses, then starts writing answers. No panic, no racing heartbeat, just calm. The next day in class, Miss Harland hands out a pop quiz. Ava holds the pencil, waits for that old tremor in her hand. It doesn't come. She hears Mr. Cole's voice in her head. "Don't rush truth. It's already yours." She takes a slow breath, reads the first question, then another. This time she doesn't crumble. It wasn't about knowing more. It was about remembering she already did. When the bell rings, Miss Harland looks down at Ava's paper. "Miss Kensington," she says, frowning slightly, "are you guessing?" Ava meets her eyes, calm. "No." She says quietly, "I'm remembering." The teacher stares for a moment, unsure what to make of it. But the girl who once trembled during every test now sat like a quiet storm. Ava walks out, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. Not arrogance, relief. Mr. Cole passes by, carrying a bucket. "How'd it paused?" she said. And it worked. He grinned. "Told you, pause is power." It wasn't a miracle, it was a shift, from fear to faith. If you're still watching, hit subscribe. Because what happens next proves that real change doesn't start in the spotlight, it starts in the quiet. And in the school library, days later. Ava's classmates whisper, "She's different now," one says. "She didn't stutter once." Who's been helping her? She doesn't answer. But every afternoon after the bell, she finds herself in the cafeteria again, talking to the janitor most kids never notice. Sometimes he teaches her tricks to calm her nerves. Other times they just talk about pressure, about parents, about expectations. She learns that Mr. Cole once dreamed of being a teacher. "Didn't work out," he says, smiling faintly. "But life gives you classrooms anyway. You just got to pay attention to who's in them." Sometimes the teacher doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes he carries a broom. Later that day, Ava is standing before the trophy case, the same one Mr. Cole cleans every week. Her reflection stares back. Empty spaces waiting for names. Her name isn't there yet, but for the first time she doesn't feel like it needs to be. Not yet. She whispers to her reflection, "Don't rush truth." Behind her, Mr. Cole's voice drifts in softly, "You'll get there. The world's just testing if you can stay calm while you wait." She turns, smiles, "Then I'm ready for the next test." Confidence doesn't shout, it just walks back into the room that once made you small. A week later, Ava sits in her classroom, the teacher announcing a surprise oral quiz. Her classmates groan. Ava just exhales. When her name is called, she stands, steady as ever. "Who discovered penicillin?" the teacher asks. Ava smiles slightly. "Alexander Fleming." No hesitation, no shaking voice, just clarity. The class stares. Even the teacher seems stunned. When Ava sits down, she looks to the doorway. Mr. Cole stands there sweeping. He doesn't say a word, just nods once, proud. He didn't give her the answers. He gave her something rarer, stillness. The kind of stillness that turns noise into focus and fear into rhythm. Sometimes the greatest cheat code in life isn't knowing more, it's believing longer. As the camera fades to black, and that's how a billionaire's daughter finally learned her first lesson money couldn't buy, self-belief. If this story made you pause even for a second, that's your cheat code too. Hit subscribe for more stories like this, because somewhere out there, someone you overlooked today might be carrying the answer you've been searching for all along. A month later, the day of the National Academic Challenge, the gymnasium has never looked this polished. Velvet curtains, spotlights, parents lined up in tailored suits and pearls, every seat filled, every whisper carrying the same question. Why is she representing the school? Because until a month ago, Ava Kensington couldn't win a single classroom quiz. Now somehow she's sitting under the spotlight, calm, composed and completely silent. They expected a nervous girl. What they got instead was something they'd never seen before. Her father, Richard Kensington, sits in the front row, cold, unreadable. The billionaire whose company's name funds half the trophies in this hall. His expression says it all. Don't embarrass me. A few rows behind him, unseen by most, stands Mr. Samuel Cole, the school janitor, still in his uniform, hands folded, watching. The host clears his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Academic Challenge. A hush falls. First question. Ava's hand hovers slightly above her buzzer, then stops. She closes her eyes, pauses, breathes. The audience thinks she froze. But Mr. Cole smiles, because he knows that pause, that's her power loading. When you learn to pause before pressure, the world starts to wait for your next move. The host calls out, which scientist discovered the law of... Before he finishes, another contestant buzzes in. Wrong. Ava opens her eyes, calm. She buzzes next. Isaac Newton. Her tone? Measured, grounded, not a flicker of panic. The scoreboard lights up. 1 point, then 2, then 5. By the halfway mark, the girl who once trembled at her own name is leading the entire competition. The teachers exchange glances. One whispers, she's changed. The other says, no, she's remembering. Her father was looking. He's still not smiling. He just stares jaw tight as if waiting for her to fail, just once, so he can understand her again. But behind him, near the door, Mr. Cole watches like a quiet guardian. His head slightly bowed as if every answer she gives is a prayer answered in silence. Sometimes the loudest applause isn't heard in the room. It's felt in the soul of the one who believed in you first. Next question, says the host. What's the chemical symbol for? Tungsten. A pause. The crowd leans forward. The clock ticks. Ava closes her eyes again, this time her hands trembling. She remembers the notebook Mr. Cole gave her. Don't rush truth. It's already yours. She exhales, smiles faintly. W. The buzzer confirms. Correct. Applause. Cheers. Even the teachers who once dismissed her clap now. Hey, if you're still watching this, stop scrolling, because this right here is why we tell these stories. They're not just about race or class, they're about truth. Hit subscribe. Let's keep these stories alive, the ones the world forgets to celebrate. Final question, says the host. The room goes still. Even her father leans forward now. The question, who said education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world? Ava doesn't look down, doesn't search her memory. She just stares at the space above the crowd, the one where Mr. Cole stands. Her lips move slowly. Nelson Mandela. The host blinks. Correct. The room explodes. Applause, cheers, flashlights, cameras. Her classmates rush forward. Her name, Ava Kensington, was finally engraved into the same legacy she once watched from behind the glass trophy case. But victory means nothing until you decide who deserves to share it with you. Her father rises, forcing a proud smile for the cameras. He shakes her hand stiffly, whispers, "Well done, sweetheart." But his eyes don't understand how she got here, because this wasn't his lesson. She steps off the stage, holding her trophy. Every camera follows her, every head turns, but she walks past them all, past her father, past the flashing lights, straight to the man standing quietly by the exit. Mr. Cole. She stops in front of him. For a second the world faux lights, no cheers, no trophies, just her and him. She holds out the golden trophy. A hush spreads behind her as people realize what's happening. She says, voice steady, "You taught me more than anyone here ever did." He looks at the trophy, then at her, and shakes his head slowly. "No, Ava, I didn't teach you. You just remembered who you are." He smiles faintly. The same calm smile he wore the day she doubted him. And for the first time, Ava Kensington bows her head to a janitor no one ever saw. In a world obsessed with status, it's the invisible ones who often hold the keys to transformation. Later that evening, the trophy now sits in the school's glass cabinet, the same one Mr. Cole polished every morning. But this time, there's a new engraving below Ava's name, dedicated to Mr. Samuel Cole for teaching lessons beyond the classroom. Students walk by and pause, not at the trophy, but at the name they'd never noticed before. She had tutors, she had money, she had the best teachers in the world, but the man who changed her life was the one paid to sweep their lessons away. He didn't give her answers. He gave her silence, and in that silence she found herself. In a world that measures worth by wealth, real wisdom often comes from those the world forgets to look at. What if the people society overlooks are the ones carrying the answers we've all been searching for? If stories like this remind you that truth can wear a janitor's uniform, subscribe. Because Untold Black Struggles isn't just storytelling, it's remembering what the world tried to erase.